Good science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown and you lose you?
Where you been?
Drunk.
Wendy, darling, light of my life.
What's your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death? Yeah, so fuck up and die.
That's so good. Nobody hears that. I've never.
No, I know.
I've only left
No,
it
and
in one time because you told a joke that was relevant to the podcast.
Oh, I did, huh?
Well, out of 150,
I'm bound to say something good. That's
the
the law
odds.
of big numbers right
Yeah.
there. That's the law of big numbers, baby.
Yeah, 150. Guess what? This is the 150th episode. We're just going. This is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast.
That's a weird way to start it.
This is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast.
Start over.
Here, babe, you're the host of the show. Go ahead.
This is the Cult of Cinema Knowledge podcast. Welcome to episode 150. I'm Mary.
Oh, I thought you were going to introduce us.
That's
No,
pretty cool.
I was
Usually
pointing to
you
you.
introduce us.
Oh, I'm Levi. I'm the engineer. That's
Hello.
Who's
I'm
that?
Jordan, and I'm a filmaholic.
hi, Jordan.
Yeah.
Um,
We're here today to talk about a great movie that's inspirational and makes me happy. And the movie, this is my first viewing of this movie, so be gentle, please.
it is,
You know.
which is interesting. So
It's weird for you guys. That weirded me out that you guys have never seen that.
that weirded a lot of people out apparently. But I think that we should do a whole month of like movies you should have seen by now, type of movies for people. Like it won't be for everyone, but like we got to put like Schindler's List, and what was there was one that you didn't see, was like Jurassic Park or something. It wasn't that, but
No, there's some big ones. The Godfather was the Godfather forever until this podcast. That was my mark of shame. I was like, I've never seen it.
Mine is Star Wars. I've never seen Star Wars.
What? You've never seen the original Star Wars?
I tried when we did the Star Wars episode. Go listen to that. I tried. I tried to get her to watch it, and she watched like the first 20 minutes, and she was like, "People like this," and she fucked off. This was before she was really into reading too, so she just kind of I don't know, sat in a corner or something. She'd rather do that than watch Star Wars.
Yeah, you just counted your goldfish bag.
Anyway,
Would be
see, I'm too loud now.
yeah,
But
buddy.
this is about Dead Poets Society.
Yeah, so
story of my life, bud.
this.
This
All
is
right,
about Dead
I'm
Poets
switching
Society.
ears so I can hear you better.
Okay.
So my wife is here, obviously. She is picking the movies for the month. She did the poll, and she put Dead Poets Society on there. And I'm glad that we watched it, because this is another one of the things where it's like, I probably wouldn't have never got around to it if it wasn't for the podcast. So, great. That's good. And I put it on the poll a couple months ago. And so I'm glad it kind of came back around, because it seemed like it was like second place or something. So, but this was my first watch, too. It was
I always like to ask Mary, why did this movie make it on the poll? What was the inspiration for this film? And it's one you've seen, obviously, because it's a film you like.
Suicide.
Well, I mean, more than that. Okay, so the
Trigger
theme-
warning.
The theme for the poll was like movies that fuel my social worker heart, right? So, which is why I put this on the list, and I think other people think about this sometimes too when they think about like social work and what it means. So for me, it made it on the inspirational part too, but I think it's about like the mentor part, the missing of like mental health, not seeing it, what it means for people after. Like there's a lot of aspects I think about like social work in general that made me put it on the list. And plus I think I picked those movies because they're all just really ones that made me feel profoundly. You know what I mean? Like the standing on the desk, that powerful moment will be one that you'll just always remember.
I'm so mad. I was saying this when we watched it the other night, because I was so mad that like in all the promotion, like the poster and like everything I've ever seen about Dead Poets Society has been like that image of them standing on the desk.
Right.
And so
Captain, my captain is
I
the
knew,
thing.
I knew it was coming the whole time. And so it was like, it was still impactful, but it like, I'm like, man, I wish I didn't know that they were all going to stand on their desk, because it probably would have been like, oh shit. Ethan Hawke.
I mean,
little
beautiful.
Ethan Hawke. It's still great.
It's beautiful framing.
Yeah, it's
like
still- the shot's great.
It looks amazing, and it's like it's very like artistic, like to
It's
the true frame
one
of
of
like,
the
fine art.
3 shots of the movie that were actually worth a fuck. That they actually were like, we better actually frame this because this movie looked very boring visually.
Yeah.
Visually, it
very,
was
like,
fucking like
standard.
cardboard oatmeal.
But that's me again, right? Like
So-
I don't tend to look at the visual
Yeah.
impact of it.
No, it's
like
it's
I
fine.
didn't even
It's not about that.
realize
Yeah,
like,
this
until
movie's
I
not about
watch
that.
it. When I watch things with Levi, then I like pay much more attention to how they're filming and different things like that because I know he's noticing it that way. But I've never even noticed that they like they're showing his face at the end like through one of the kids' legs or
Yeah.
something. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't hit me. I don't think about that. I just think about like, oh, them like standing up and like what that means for the story and the impact. And I know that visually they're doing it and it feels more important because of the way they're filming it. But that's just not how I.
A perfect example, probably my actual favorite shot in the movie, is when it cuts back to, I forget the kid's name, it was like Cameron or something, at the party, and the camera is like spinning around like 3 times, and then it finally lands on him, and he's just like wasted and burps, and I'm like, that's a good way to introduce come into the scene, because it's like the whole movie on that point has been like very on sticks and not a lot of movement, and that's like the camera spinning around, it like lets you into that like he's drunk, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. That was the first time, because I did notice how like I'm like, oh, this is very just plain looking, and so every now and again when they would pull a trick out of the bag, I'd be like, oh, I would be like, I'd notice it way more because of that, Anyway, you want me to do a quick synopsis, or you want to do a synopsis, or you want to do a
I'm
synopsis?
definitely not doing the synopsis because I think I'm terrible
We,
at
I don't know. We could skip it.
Well, yeah, I mean, but
We can
this
do a
is,
quick one.
I think it clearly needs a context. We need a little bit of a synopsis.
All right, go back and listen to the episode of the holdovers, and then just take that synopsis and add like 3 more people and a suicide, and then that's the same movie.
Yeah, and that's the same. Essentially, yeah. But I mean, I think here, look, I'll give the IMDb, their quick synopsis on here.
Oh yeah, I forgot we used to do that. It's like actually
right?
just find one. We'd find the worst ones too on purpose.
I know, right, on purpose, yeah. But all right, so it's Maverick teacher John Keating returns in 1959 to the
Maverick.
prestigious New England. What did I say?
No, I like Maverick.
Maverick?
I like that they
Maverick
describe him
teacher.
as a maverick. He's like,
Oh, right. Because really, though, I mean, yeah, he's kind of like a trailblazer.
but now I'm like imagining him in like a leather jacket and sunglasses.
Let
and
him
stuff.
finish.
sure, yeah,
Let
riding his-
Jordan
riding his
finish.
bullet-
babe.
He rides his bullet bike.
He
into
showed
the-
up into class with sunglasses on. He's like, all right,
Yeah.
this
Oh my
isn't going to be
gosh.
your regular English class, boys.
Yeah, he's like,
I'm going
"Come
to
on,
teach
ding
you
dongs. We're
to
gonna find
rebel
ourselves."
against society.
This is why you can't get
Yeah.
through a synopsis.
Come on, you soft boys. Let's go get hard off of Shakespeare or whatever. Well, I can't remember the author or the poet, but all right,
Henry David Thoreau.
Walt Whitman.
Thoreau. That's what it is.
Well, Thoreau is how they started the meeting, all right?
Yeah, of course. And that was like he's the biggest one, right? No, he's not.
Yeah, he's the one they brought up the most, probably.
It
those,
was, okay,
those are
he's the one-
those are the big 3 for sure, though.
Is he the one that was on the poster?
Yeah.
Who did he have a poster of?
Yeah,
That was Thoreau.
was it Whitman?
I thought it was Whitman.
It's Walt Whitman. Yes.
The
Walt
poster
Whitman
might
is
have
the
been
one
Walt
that he loves. That's who, like, that like Peter Weir, the director of this, loves Walt Whitman, or at least the writer
I
Tom.
mean, who
Tom
doesn't
Schmuler.
love Walt Whitman?
Me.
Right. Yeah. I'm not very familiar, so it's also like that's kind of took some of the wind out of my sails for this movie. Anyways,
Yeah.
let's get to this real quick. He ends up to a New England boys boarding school where he was once a star student, using poetry to embolden his pupils to new heights of self-expression. Throw in some like harsh family dynamics and suicide, and you got the whole movie right here, baby.
Nice. Oh, dude, Peter Weir directed The Truman Show. I knew that sounded familiar. I was like, I know that name.
Yeah, I only knew it because I looked it up, but I was like, oh, that's so funny. It's kind of cool because it's like this movie is not reflected in The Truman Show at all, and so it's kind of like, oh, okay, he's kind of all over the place.
Did he die? He hasn't made a movie in like 13 years. He's probably dead.
He had another one too. Oh, Master and Commander too, which is also like
Pablo has been
Out
begging
there.
us to watch that movie. But we said we were going to do an ocean movie, so yeah, maybe. An ocean month.
well,
Deep-
Pablo needs to
Deep
watch
Sea.
The Terror because that's dope.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad you finally watched there. Anyway, this read the book. It's great. It's long though.
Wait, does Dead Poet Society have a book? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But This is an original screenplay, which is cool.
That's nice.
Unless it is. That's what I found online, but I don't know. Maybe it's based off like a poem or something.
So what were your first impressions then, Jordan? Because this was obviously our first viewing. What was
right?
How are you?
Yes. It's kind of crazy. It's like it's in like the new school category of film where it's like it looked like every single movie made in the 90s. It had the same kind of like whatever color process that they went through for film, and whatever cameras they were using weren't quite small enough to be like really shaky handheld like what we kind of got in like the 2000s, the early 2000s. It's like it just seems like shot on sticks, really plain, and a few big sweeping shots, and it didn't get super technical, and it looked kind of plain, and it was just telling a story. It's kind of like
it definitely
Good Will
seemed
Hunting.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like that was secondary, which is like it's always kind of unfortunate because you don't need you can just like last week obviously with Pride and Prejudice, it's like they put the effort to make it look good, but obviously that was not the point of the movie. It's like a movie can look good, but it's it's fine. I wish it looked better, but I think it's fine.
It's literally like technically too. I think it's like they just had bigger cameras, bigger setups. How production was filmed.
No, that's not even fucking an excuse though. This is 1989. Look at like 12 Angry Men. You know what I mean? That was made in the 50s, and they had way more dynamic camera movement than this movie did.
Yeah, but then that takes place in one location. They have a lot more. They have a lot more like.
That's harder. That's way harder than being like, I have an entire campus. Let me put up a dolly track. I think it was probably budgetary. Honestly, I think it was probably just like, we have one camera. We don't have a buttload. We don't have a crane. We don't have a fucking bunch of dolly tracks. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably just like, and the guy who did the cinematography is probably like 100-year-old dude that's just like learned how to make movies in the 30s. And so they just were like, all right, bring him in. He's working on the set next door. On his lunch break, he's going to come shoot this movie because that's just
a lot of assumptions there.
No, that's true. That's 100% fact. Look, this is the podcast that knows. This is the historical podcast.
It's the cult of cinema knowledge.
It's in the
It was shot by Roger Deakins or something like.
Trends maybe right. I didn't.
Can you imagine?
But how trends work, where it like shifts into like that indie '90s feel. Cinematography. This came in '89. This film was like 1989, my birth year. What up? Whoop whoop. And it looks like it. It feels like it.
Yeah.
But I think that what helps with this kind of movie to keep it timeless is that they made it. What is that, like 40 years?
It was like 1959 is when it takes place. I think is what the guy said at the beginning.
Which, so it's like what? It's like
I don't want to like
89. What is
30 years?
Yeah, like 30 years.
Yeah, 30.
I don't want
to, and then
I don't want to rag, but it's just like I feel like I don't know if that was necessary. Like I honestly feel like it took me out of it, kind of, because there's like I think they were like, we can't tell this story in 1989 in the present because like minds have been opened since then, and people have kind of come around generationally to the art.
You couldn't tell that story about 89 very well, I don't think.
No, what? In 1989, I would say they said it. That's what I'm saying. They couldn't have said it in 89 because by then it wouldn't have made any sense. Like, as much. You know what I mean? Because it's like...
the family units wouldn't make much sense,
That's
right?
what I'm saying. 59, it makes sense for, like, you can't follow your... Like acting
how,
in 59 makes more sense.
Kids before maybe the rebellious period of the 60s with teenagers and stuff like that.
That's what I'm
right?
saying. Yeah.
Like, 50s were very much a time period of...
counter.
Oh, counter.
You're... Oh, no. I like, to interrupt, just quickly. You're like... I support that and do agree with you, where, like, they did a great job at, like, taking the family dynamics of that time period and just kind of not even like, and it's nice because they didn't like slap you in the face with it. It's just kind of like they're just like, here it is, this is how it is. I think that like the suicide was a little abrupt and not necessary for this movie personally. I still feel like it would have just a solid impact if he just felt trapped and isolated and then he just shut out everybody, and that was kind of it, and it just kind of dissolved. I don't know, to me the emotional impact of it felt so rushed that I didn't have enough time to breathe after it happened.
And it felt sanitized to me, like where it was like, you had the slow-mo shot, and it was very like...
Well, I was thinking of A24. So I'm thinking like Saltburn. I think Saltburn is a movie that kind of that kind of tries to tell this story on a more intimate and like, you know, more extreme scale. But I think it does like kind of show like, you know, preppy boys in a boys' school type of deal that like their connections and their friendships. And it like this movie does a good job at kind of being like a bridge between like an A24 film and then like an Amblin film or like some like, you know, some like, what is that? Oh my God. All the boys are together on the train track.
Yeah, Stand By Me.
Stand By Me, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like kind of like that, like, you know,
Yeah.
a group
God,
of boys
Amblin,
together.
yeah.
I feel like the suicide was important in the story. I get the point, I think, about maybe it happens a little too late in the movie, because I do think the point is not about his suicide, but be about the other people's reaction to it, right?
Right. It's beautifully
what's
done.
What's his name? Todd?
Like,
is it Todd? Is it that his name?
Is Ethan Hawke?
Yeah, Ethan Hawke. Is that
I think
Todd?
it's Todd.
Yeah, so it's Todd.
It's just the whole time I'm like, it's little boy Ethan Hawke. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's also
yeah.
Mr. Keating's story too, right? About like being this inspiration to people, and this is, I think, where it fuels my social worker heart too, because I think a lot of times we get caught up in the ones we couldn't save or the ones we didn't recognize, and I think anyone can relate to this, even if you're not in social work, right? Like the things you didn't see, but you kind of forget or don't see the impact you made on everyone else, right? And so I think that was like a good wrap up, seeing Todd's change, being able to like speak in public, see him be resilient through that pain, see him
that he's the one that stands up on his desk first is a
Mr.
big moment
Keating
for him.
Taught him
Yeah,
about
right,
swimming against the stream, right? And like standing up and, you know, carpe diem or whatever, and he did that, and that was his own growth, and Mr. Keating's growth of like loving to teach and losing the student but still being able to make the difference anyway. Like the stories at the end were almost, that bit was the most important, and I just think they had to spend the beginning time really building the character so that his suicide really, and you felt that, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, I agree, it could have probably happened a little earlier, but you know.
I think it's like I'm down with the suicide. I was glad because I'm like,
let's not say down with suicide.
I'm down. Well, I'm down like narratively, right? As like
Right.
it being for the structure of the
feel
film.
Forced necessarily.
Yeah, no, it works.
It didn't feel as impactful as I think they wanted it to, and maybe it was in the time period. Like I just think that I've seen more extreme stories told now. Like watch like Midsummer, the first 15 minutes of that.
Wish.
It's like you're already like, you know, that takes on that narrative and flips it on its head. And
But that
brings it to a
almost
level.
talks about like our desensitization to it, right? Or like our need to have this kind of like a midsummer bit of extreme in our art now to feel the impact. I don't know.
You guys are talking like this movie was made like forever ago. Like this is 1989. You know how many fucking insane, groundbreaking, violent, just like movies were made in the fucking 70s and 80s? Like so many.
But they weren't about like
this
dandy
movie.
boys. Like they
no,
weren't about
this
like,
movie.
boy. You know,
I kind of wish I hadn't seen the Holdovers first because I couldn't stop comparing it because I think the Holdovers did the same thing but better in every way by narrowing the focus. Because my biggest problem with this movie is just there was kind of like too many boys, so I couldn't get really. By the time I was invested in Neil, right, who is the boy who commits suicide, it's like he's kind of the main character, but then he like disappears, and then like someone else is like kind of the lead. Like I don't know. It's like I did get to know the boys, but because they were trying to spend so much time, they all felt like they had like a 1 or 2 sentence. Like this is this character. You know what I mean? Like they were good characters, but they weren't exactly like deep characters.
They all had their hat. And
yeah,
so
they all
they're
their
just-
hat.
they're
They all
all
their
their
hat.
I wonder if that's just a theme of movies during that time, right? Because that reminds me of like The Breakfast Club. And
like
stuff
I'm going
that.
crazy.
What do you mean?
That time, 1989. I don't know.
35 years ago, honey. That's
but yeah, dude. I mean, that
years
is.
ago.
But at the
We
time,
talk
we had
about-
been
we
making
talk about, like,
film
2000
for like 90 years at that time.
I know, but we talk about like in 2006.
Really, like,
if a
hundreds
movie-
of
I
thousands.
wasn't saying it's a bad or good thing. I'm just saying like it does remind me what you're saying about like having a lot of different character.
I guess
movements.
like I feel like I'm worked up about it
Why are you
because
worked up?
no. I mean because like if this movie had come out in 1959 when it took place, it would have been revolutionary. But the fact that it came out in 1989, I feel like I'd already. Like, I don't know, like, it's like we've been there, done that. Like, for example, another movie that I thought of while watching this was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is like not a boys' school, but a similar dynamic of like a guy comes in to this like everyone's controlled by this like authoritarian like type of figure, and he like, you know, gets them to break the mold, and then one kid ends up committing suicide, and then blah blah blah. Like there's a whole kind of similar arc, and like that movie was made in the early 60s, you know what I mean? So it's like if anything, this movie feels like too little too late for me. Like I understand that it's like it came out at a time at this, like before the 90s, so it had really probably a lot of impact on like that was that generation's version of that. And so that was important for like Gen Xers to see that and be like, yeah, dude, go against the grain, poetry. And then we got all the great art of the 90s. But it's like, I don't know, I feel like I'd seen this movie before, even not relating to the holdovers or anything. Like it just felt so familiar, but like in a good way and in a bad way. Like it was really good and cozy and like Amblin-y, like you said. Like it felt like kind of nostalgic for that reason, even though I hadn't seen it before. And the story was very good. You know what I mean? The like it was well told and everything.
Well, my mind is getting blown right now because it's rated PG.
That makes sense because
that makes perfect sense. Yeah, it literally like that because like you said, like the suicide feels sanitized. I'm actually thoroughly impressed now of what they got away with for PG. I mean,
that's
once
fair.
Again, it's 89, so PG is a little different. You have a different kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like their themes of like sex and relationships and like I don't know having
There's
like
the porno
like
of the girl and the kid.
You literally you see
Right.
the boobies.
Yeah,
you see the boobs, but I think because it's so pin-up-y style, you kind of get away with that.
And I had to look for her nipples because they were so soft, and so it's like you almost you're
right,
like
airbrush.
yeah,
There's like super airbrush, but yeah, it's like
like
I
a
think
hard
that-
nipple.
I know, yeah, and I don't know, man. It's like wild because now it's PG, which is
It makes sense, and
kind of
because I don't really have a problem with the like the suicide being like I don't know, like because it really does like where it's like the parents obviously take no accountability, like I don't know, like it was all very tragic and about.
I kind of wish we had a little bit. Well, I don't know. I guess.
So I want more. I wanted
enough.
more of Neil's. Like I understand, like he had like the crazy explosion of like creativity and like oh my mind is unlocked, as were a lot of the characters, which is what was kind of so great about this. You know what I mean? So it's like I wish we could have kind of like almost spent more time with him and like saw that side of like him going to that extreme. Like I can't go back to be living in this box anymore, and then just like can't stand up to his dad and everything like that.
I do love that line. The dad's like, this isn't a prison sentence. Like you have to go. He's like, it's far from it or whatever. Like, and it's just like that was great because it really that helped like drive it home where it's like that's how he feels.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, oh, you have my whole life mapped out for like the next 10 years, and they do a good job at like that tender age of whatever they're 17 18 that they are, and it's like his whole life's mapped out, and when you think about it, it's like, well, you're going to be like 27 28, but it's like he wants to explore himself and figure things out for himself, and so it feels trapped. There's no other way out.
And it made me think about like and just remember when you're like 16 or however old they are right here, how every feeling you had felt like fact and felt like it was going to exist forever. You know what I mean? I think that's the point too, where he feels like in his acting, and you look at it, and obviously, I think we can look at it and be like, "Oh man, if he could just get through those years, right?" But it's at the same time, like when you think about you in those teenage development years, everything feels so forever. Everything feels so intense.
That's why I think one of my favorite scenes was actually kind of related to that, when it's like Keating comes in and is like, look at all these boys, and they thought they were going to live forever. All of them now are fucking in the ground, worm food. Like you're all going to die. You know what I mean? It's like you're not going to, you feel like you're invincible because you're like this young teenage boy all full of spunk and hormones. He's like, and then he's like, no, see all these boys? They had dreams and passions, and now they're all fucking dead. And then he leans in. And I thought that was like a good part to his character. I almost wish he would have got more wacky. And he's just like, carpe diem.
Carpe diem. No, I wish that was. I wish that was more, like more of a focal point of this movie. Because like everyone like the oh Captain, my Captain and stuff like that. Like I don't know. That was like that's too like sappy to me. It's like that. I think that is like perfect to Robin Williams' character and to Keating's character in general, like because that's him, like it's his first impression on the kids, and that's what he gives them is like you're gonna die, and you need to seize the day. You need to seize your life. Like you need to get out there and explore, and like you kind of just like right when that first interaction happened, I was like, okay, this is like he's gonna be great every time he's with the kids. I'm gonna love it.
I wish there was more of him, dude. Because
there's not enough.
He's so good.
So pissed because the amount of times where it was just them in their dumbass cave and trying to get girls. It's all important for the characters, because the whole movie's about the schoolboys, like all these like little proper boys. But I wish that there was more because it almost didn't feel like enough. Like I was like, oh, and for the movie, I thought this movie was like mainly his teachings and him interacting with the kids.
I kind of got that impression because that's what everyone talks about now is like, Robin Williams, you know what I mean?
Those are like the best scenes.
So I have a question for you guys because of this movie. Who was your favorite teacher and why?
Oh, it's Brandon Arnold.
I mean, yeah, Brandon Arnold for sure.
I mean, he made the biggest impact on my life as like a teacher.
Okay, but why?
He kind of had the Keating like effect a little bit, where he just was like, you gotta like film's dope and film's awesome, and he just like he would let us like I would come into his class constantly out of like part of his class.
We would just wander into his class. Yeah, we would all the time.
Sit down and watch him teach, and so it's like. That was like, he very like. I mean, we went to a broken dumb school that didn't care about.
It was
education,
a broken,
so
yeah.
We went to a school that just let us do anything we wanted. So
yeah.
We didn't go to.
That's
real
what
school.
I was saying.
Was it just that he let you do whatever you want?
No.
There's something
he gave us the tools, but like also had like the compassion and like I don't know, like chillness to not be like super staunch. Like he could like I don't know. Channel our creativity in like a way that
and he would question our like because we were like edgy little kids and we were all like we like death and violence and so
he'd be like why really... so why did you do that like what was the purpose behind it, what are you trying to tell with this story? And I'm same
with film. It's like he's like you like all these like bloody films, but then it's like, well, look at film history.
But then again, I mean, he wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
He fucking watched clean flicks, so
Well, yeah, he couldn't drink diet soda or something, but he could. Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
So my favorite teacher was Miss Parker.
Yeah,
obviously.
that's my second.
Yeah, she's like second or third for me. Yeah, for sure.
You wouldn't have Miss Parker. What are you talking about?
Oh no! Oh, I thought you were talking about who's the teacher that we had that did.
Me and you have never shared a teacher, Jordan.
No. Oh, I'm thinking of the teacher that we had, Levi. What's her name? Miss Mary?
Hess? Marianne?
Yeah, Marianne Hess.
Yeah,
that's
she was great too. Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, I'm thinking of.
That's where we met. We met in Miss Hess's class.
That's what I was thinking of.
So Miss Parker was our junior high drama teacher, and she was important. And I tell you why. This is why she was important in my life. It's because she had the ability to make each student feel special. You know what I mean? I think she had her own individual connection with each person, and connected that way. And so that kind of reminded me of this movie too. I think a lot about what a mentor looks like, you know what I mean, in someone's life. And so that's why I asked you that.
Well, it's like coming from a place of wisdom, but also understanding the position of being a youth, right? Which is important as an educator, because a lot of people in authority positions don't really, they're just do as I say, trust me, I know from experience. Yeah. But it's never I was there once, let me try and be empathetic. And so when you get that as a young person, especially if you're not used to that from familial or other authority figures, that's a big deal. Because I had that with Miss Parker too. It's she definitely I'd gotten in trouble and stuff at school, and she'd talk to me and be like, hey man, what's going on, which was nice. Instead of just getting me in trouble, because everyone else just got me in trouble.
So in the social work aspect, I think we talk a lot about having just a supportive person, right? You don't always need to have both mom and dad are great and everything like that, but having a supportive
that's why I want to be a
valuable.
Professional mentor to young men. That's why I'm gonna just go.
Mentor does not mean I'm gonna train you to like all the movies I like.
I'm gonna get wherever I go in, I just be introduce all these baggers.
I don't know what the difference is. I can't distinguish the difference.
I'm saying there's too much of an age gap for me to be your friend, so I'll be your mentor.
Levi would be a great teacher. Don't you think?
Then just follow me on Letterboxd and watch everything I watch.
Yeah.
That's all I'll mentor you.
Anyway.
I let a bagger borrow my bass once for like 6 months because he wanted to learn bass and he didn't have the money. So I let him borrow a bass and he was like, and then we showed each other music and our penises.
That's all you showed it, right? Just music.
No. Anyway, this.
Did Jordan ever finish your opinion on this movie? I feel like you kind of started and then it just...
Yeah, of course.
That's what this whole podcast is. We're not like summing it up to.
Yeah. I don't just like state my opinion and then like break down the facts because I don't know the facts. All right, Mary.
I feel like we just interrupted you though. I feel like you started. Being
That's how it goes though.
It
Sometimes
was slow on visuals, and then we just took over, and you never actually.
It's
got
not
to
like
finish your
scripted though,
opinion.
you know. So it's like
No, yeah.
you got to be able to jump in sometimes. You got to.
That's pretty much my only gripe with this movie. Like on the basis of like a rewatch or like a suggestion to watch this movie is it's pretty fucking dull, and that's okay because it's serviceable. But like
the message is really the message is really
it's
good.
dull
Though.
looking.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like it like to watch the film itself, I'm like, well, this is kind of like it's kind of slow, and it's just not like. It's the film grain, the color, everything about it. Like
it's just
and
muddy.
maybe that,
There's no like
And
depth. It was very flat. You know, it's like
what
the
sucks is,
music
like,
was boring.
There was no like
which is fine.
There was no like juxtaposition. Like it's not like they went outside and it was beautiful, or they went into their cave and it was like glow. It was like more glamorous. You know, it just like all of it kind of looked the same, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Where it's like whoever did like the color, you know, grading afterwards, and like whoever touched up this film, it kind of just like I think they just played it safe, which is fine because this isn't a movie that like needed to be like crazy like beautiful sunsets or anything like that. Kind of waxing poetic. It's just like it physically is like what they're saying is important.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I feel bad though because honestly, I don't want to compare too much, but I can't help every problem I have with this movie. Most are minor, but every problem I have is fixed by the holdovers. It's like the similar story, but it's like, man, I wish I had more of the cool teacher, Paul Giamatti. Man, I wish this had like a more of a narrow focus.
Definitely a different type of teacher.
I know a little bit for sure, but it's like I wish I had a more.
I said that last episode that holdovers.
Yeah, I wish I had a more narrow focus on the characters, you know, and it did by having less. I wish that it looked way better, which fucking holdovers looks amazing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just like the whole time I was just like, I don't know. It was like it's all still very good, and I was actually kind of surprised by the suicide. And
me too.
So
I didn't know that. I can't believe I've gone this long in my life without knowing that it happened. I didn't know. Yeah. So it's like it's really not like the biggest like. It's not super monumental in this film. It's almost more just like the low point before the climax, and so it's like, you know, it's kind of like a little mini climax essentially. And so you just I don't know, like the fact that it's like I think that kind of just goes to show that it also it's like the suicide is like it can be there and it doesn't need to be there. I think that the suicide is important though because this is a PG-13 or PG movie, and I feel like a young kid seeing this movie, it's a cool theme, not cool, but like an important theme for younger people to kind of like see and kind of deal with and grasp, and that's why I kind of wish they did a little bit more with it.
Yeah,
like, you know, to
it's
like
very much like what could I like? I agree, but I'm glad it wasn't like about that. Like the whole movie wasn't about that. Right, yeah. Because it's like it very much easily could have been a movie about this boy who like was like repressed and then killed himself and how it dealt with his friends and stuff, and that's fine. But that would have been a totally different movie. You know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, no, I think that's the biggest thing to take away. Is like as a 32-year-old man, it's like I much more relate to like the teacher, and it's like I relate to the boys at the age. But it's like this movie being PG, especially. Like is an important movie to see. Like I feel like a kid who's like lives in a sort of an oppressive household where it's like he's not allowed to feel or do his own things. Like a young kid in his early to mid teens sees this, it's going to change his life. And I think that is what's super powerful about this movie.
Oh yeah, I did forget to say that because we've seen this now as adults. And Mary, you saw this. I'm assuming younger, right? Clearly, like
I was younger when I saw it 2 days ago.
But younger, like 16, teenager.
I have no idea when I first
Yeah, how old
saw
were
it.
you?
It feels like I've just always known it.
You never saw it. It's just like been projected into your
You talk
brain.
about it being nostalgic or whatever.
Which is
I
hilarious
guess
because
I
you can't
feel that
remember
way about it.
anything.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I don't remember movies unless they really made me feel something
Yeah.
important. So I've remembered that. So obviously it made me feel something really important.
Well, this made me-
nostalgic because I feel like I've just always have seen it before. I have no idea what age I watched it.
I'm gonna force myself to write poems because of this movie and read more because I've never that's always been my writing blind spot. It's like I fucking suck at writing poems and lyrics and stuff. And I've tried, and but I'm like I should read more poetry. You know, I was watching this movie. I'm like, I should get into poetry, but we'll see how that goes. I doubt
Well,
it.
yeah, that.
But I'm like that would be kind of.
I enjoyed them.
I get
enjoyed
it.
them
I
reading
get it. You know,
and I really enjoyed that this movie just like the concept of these kids like they were so attracted to poetry and like that abstract like artistic mindset that they've never got to experience in their life, and they just latched onto it, and then they were like, I loved that they all were taking it serious. Like, they were goofing and they were boys and they're having fun, but like no one was like mocking the poetry or no one was mocking each other for liking it. It wasn't like, it was really nice to not have it feel like super boys club where
like someone
they're,
ragging on and be like,
they're
oh, that's gay or something. You
like,
know what I mean?
Right,
like,
right, exactly. Like they would tease each other in like a fun, like a friend's way. Like it felt relatable, even though like these are rich 50s kids that I didn't really, wasn't really like their struggles kind of made me laugh through most of it. But
I kept asking Levi when they would like be dancing around in the cape or whatever with each other. I was like, "Is that what you guys did when you were boys? Is that
yes.
what boys do?"
Yeah,
100%.
I said, but we didn't have to.
100%.
We were
Is
just
it
like
really?
at school. We just like again. We just did whatever we
dance-
want. We
we
just
would
ride
dance
on
at
cars
school.
and stuff.
Yeah. And 100% of the day we would dance.
So
We were
funny.
dancing all the time. There's so much behind the scenes video of like me and Levi just dancing.
We just walk in
together.
and like fake murder each other like in the middle of class.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
their relationship with each other, like as boys, that seems really relatable
Well,
to you guys. Is, like,
Oh, 100%.
okay, so fascinating because it seems so weird to me.
Yeah,
Girls,
I get it.
Yeah.
Girl,
Oh, I-
or at least my experience as a girl with other girls growing up was not like that's not how we.
You guys weren't
interacted
just like you weren't
that.
just kissing and having pillow fights. That's not how, that's not how
That
girls
is
hang
what
out.
she was doing.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it was.
That is. No, this is one of the first movies where I've seen and been like, oh, I understand like fraternity, not like from like a school
Yeah.
perspective, but like I understand like a weird little boys club because I always like was like, oh, that's dumb. Like let's be more inclusive and blah blah blah. But I'm like, oh, I get the like, oh, like having your own little niche thing in your group of friends where you can just be untethered and weird. I'm like, oh, I like this is the first time where I'm like, I get that, and it doesn't seem cringe to me. Where normally things like that in movies seem like I'm like, oh, these fucking weird elite weirdos, you know what I mean? Like,
It's
But-
like it's the elite. It, like, I
but
don't
then
know,
that's SOT, you know? I don't know.
yeah, right, for real. I mean, that's the whole thing. Yeah, that's where it's like. I guess that's why it's like it's relatable because everyone like has even if you have one friend, you can create a clique out of it. And you create, like,
Yeah, okay.
it creates like your world, and you have inside jokes together, and like
Yeah, I get that. Like, I saw the friendship aspect I can relate to. I think where we all probably come from is a different part of the world. Yeah, like their innocence to me was just adorable.
That's adorable, yeah.
But
Because
it's 59, you know what I mean? And
right. And I kept like calling them. Yeah, they're like
we're like in the early
like
2000s, like
soft
smoking
boy.
cigarettes. Like,
Yeah.
that's us.
Yeah.
sometimes the area you grow up doesn't allow you to be innocent. Just, you know
Right,
what I mean?
yeah.
So, like, we experience life a little differently than
No, it's definitely they're
white
like
boy in 59
structured.
in a prep school. So
Yeah.
that's why I was like, is this what it was like for you guys? In your
Not in a prep school. We definitely
Yeah.
wish there was a cave or something, but yeah,
We had alleys.
yeah. There's alleys.
I was gonna say
The
yeah,
tree,
yeah,
the
like,
tree.
if we had a cave, someone would have got like
Canals.
ammonia and died or something. Like no one could. We couldn't hang out in a wet cave. We were-
I
we're
definitely
all-
would have got sick. It would have been a sewer for sure. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, how did you feel about the story, babe? I know how you feel about the visual and the.
Oh no,
the-
I've said I like the story. I mean, I like the story. I almost wish I wish it was stripped down so it could focus on the parts that are strongest, like the couple main characters and Keating. I want more of him. Or I wish it was longer. Like I said, like I wish it was longer. I could have taken a little bit longer of this, for sure.
Yeah. No, I really do. I feel like they wrapped it up too fast. I was like, oh, we could have had another 20 minutes easy of the after.
The
of
first
the after
half,
stuff. Like,
I didn't give a fuck about the boys, and I only cared about Robin Williams because he was casting his spell on me too. You know, he was like walking the line, and everyone's walking in the line. He's like, "See, that's conformity. You don't want to fucking conform. Like, look." Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh yeah," and then tell him that's you're fucking punk rock, man.
And it's like, oh my god, dude, Robin Williams.
But then in the second half, I actually cared about the characters. Yeah.
Right. It's the IRL though, dude. Like the Robin Williams, like it just hurts your soul because like you know how much he gave, and so like in this movie, he's giving it his all, and like him doing his like characters and stuff. And I'm like, oh, he like still gets to like be himself because he's kind of a different character in this.
It's subtle. This is his most subtle performance, I think, because I mean, we watched Good Will Hunting not long ago, and he's probably the acting is probably better in Good Will Hunting, but it's like big moments, like lots of all this stuff. In this, he's very just like his one scene of him even crying after Neil's suicide. He's like reads his book and he's like crying in the classroom was super powerful, but he's like trying to hold it together. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like this big thing. And I was like, oh, that's kind of impressive. Like it does feel like early in his career before he really was like allowed to go off the fucking chain in the 90s and do like whatever crazy shit he wanted. But it was cool to see him subdued. And so I kind of glad that we watched this because it's also because I'm like, I like Robin Williams as an actor.
We were talking about Robin Williams and like how he probably picked some of these movies on purpose.
Yeah, knowing
kind of knowing his own story or whatever. And I was talking about like when I think of Robin Williams, I think of this movie, I think of Good Will Hunting, and I think of Patch Adams. And Levi was like, that's funny because I think of like all his comedy ones, like Flubber and whatever else. Right?
I was like, I don't think of them, but they're the most. Because I think of Good Will Hunting, I think of like World's Greatest Dad. Like I do think of his weirder roles, but he's definitely known more for like Jumanji, Mrs. Doubtfire. You know what I mean? Like those kind
Mrs.
of.
Mrs. Doubtfire's his big one, and I was like, I love Birdcage, dude. Like Birdcage is him. Like
I've never watched all of Birdcage. I need to. I put it on the poll a couple times. I always wanted to because I like Nathan Lane too.
And dude, so it's like Robin Williams has always he's always been like he's never been my favorite, but like every time I see him, I'm so pleased, and I love his like performances.
Watch.
And I love who he is, and I'm sad that he's gone, man.
I've said this before. It was like one of his last movies. Well, it was like near the end. It was like 2009 or 2010 or something. And World's Greatest Dad. It's like a horribly dark comedy. But he's fucking great in it, and it's like it's so underrated.
RV's even decent, just because he's in it.
I've actually seen RV. Holy shit, it's not great, but he's the best part, obviously.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a shame, but it's like I kind of want to go and fill out my filmography with him because it's like I do think he's like sort of underrated. Like a lot of people are like, ever since he died. It was like, oh, he's like tragic, and hey, like, did you know he could actually act? Have you ever seen like 24-hour photo or whatever? And it's like,
I know, right?
And it's like which is great, but it's like, yeah, it's interesting. He's an interesting dude. Yeah, that's why I'm like, he's got a weird range, but knowing how he took his own life, like knowing that and seeing him in like a darker role is always like kind of unsettling because it's like. It's too real. He's too good at it.
Thinking about do you think he thought about this movie and this role and like what had happened before he made that decision? You know what I mean?
World's Greatest Dad's also about suicide, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm like, he definitely picked that shit. You know what I mean? You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But
no, I definitely feel like he was very selective with his roles.
Mm-hmm. It's good for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mad respect for his acting.
That's the biggest thing that's I think remembered about this movie. And then Ethan Hawke, man, I can't even. It's weird seeing him as a boy because he's my dad.
I didn't believe it. Like, dude, for like 30 minutes of this movie, she's like point him out to me, and I was like, that's Ethan Hawke, and she's like, no, when he shows up, tell me who he is, and I'm like, no, that's him. That's his character. And she's like, no, he's too soft. He's not like because like now Ethan Hawke is like Ethan Hawke's probably like the same weight he was then, but he's like 2 feet taller.
Yeah, he's like
And
kind of
just,
gaunt.
so-
He's got like
he's kind of gaunt. Yeah, he's like and she's like, I only know sinister Ethan Hawke, and I'm like, yeah, no, he's not sinister
That's
Ethan Hawke in
not
this
his
baby.
role.
No,
God, Ethan Hawke rules though. Like, but it's so
I love
weird
Ethan Hawke.
because like when I was like, yeah, we've talked many times about
Yeah,
how much we have crushes on
we're-
Ethan Hawke.
Or Hawke stands for sure.
But it's like when I would think like, oh, early Ethan Hawke, I would think like Gattaca, right? And
Yeah, and he kind of he still kind of looks
but it's like between
like little boy, like
kind of, but he
boy.
became a man in between. Like he grew like 2 feet in between this movie and Gattaca, which is like a couple of years later. And it's wild because he's still got like that baby face, but I'm just like, oh, that's Ethan Hawke. And so seeing him in this, I'm like, he's a child in this. It's weird. Like he's barely through puberty. It
It's
seems
great.
like
It's great that like
he's a late
I
bloomer.
love these types of films where they get all the kids together, all the main like principal cast, and they have them bunk so that it's like, authentic.
Yeah.
And then what's really like unique about this type of this movie in particular is they shot it chronologically.
Oh, cool.
And they shot it chronologically, and then when Neil's character, that actor, whatever his name is, Robert Sean Leonard, when after his suicide
From
scene,
House.
he was off the set. He wasn't allowed to see the kids anymore. He didn't bunk with them or anything for the rest of shooting. And so like they all like felt an impact. I was like, that's cool. I love that.
I feel like you're grabbing your desk and shaking it as you're speaking. Well, your camera's just like.
Feeling intensely over there.
Well, you know me. I'm on a treadmill.
No, yeah. Everyone who
love
doesn't
it.
watch the video, it's like you've talked many times about how ripped Jordan actually is. He's got his shirt off at all times.
Yeah, I just
So
it's
yeah.
underneath all of this.
Anyway,
Do you have a money minute
Yeah.
or anything for us?
that's what I was about to say.
I
You
do.
know the
I
flow.
read your mind.
You know
And
the
then
flow.
but usually when I find a money minute, you're finding a Reddit. So
Yeah,
hopefully you got
that is the plan.
locked and loaded. This movie
Have you
is
met me?
is insanity, dude. I cannot believe what we went from a $16 million budget, which is dirt ass cheap for this movie. $16 million. I understand, like,
But
it's
this
all shot on
movie was
location.
made
It's
in
like,
in the 1940s, according to you guys. So that's a lot of money.
Oh my god, shut
my
up.
God, dude, we talk about movies that are like from 2006 that are like, oh, in that time period, it's kind of interesting. that we got
16
this.
million
So,
makes sense
16
for like it is
they're
pretty.
all-
It is
they're all
fairly low.
unknown.
It's fairly
That's
low,
cool.
but like for an all dialogue heavy,
I would have said 30 million.
non-technical movie, I would have said like 20. But that's still like the low end of that. Like
Yeah. So
how much did it make?
16 million. It made 235 million.
Ooh.
Oof.
That is
There
a
you
that's
go. That's good
wild.
money management right there.
It makes sense.
That is wild.
No money management. I don't know. Good return
That's
on
good
investment.
money.
I don't know.
That's
That
good
is a good
money
return on
taking.
Yeah.
They took a lot of money tickets. That's what it is.
Well,
but
it just
whoever-
goes to show
whoever
you
invested in that 16 million in this film. I'm just saying.
the
Good
cusp.
choices.
The cusp of the 90s where it was like a new
Yes.
like the 80s 70s and 80s were like kind of grim because like the 60s was also grim in its way, but it's like that's when like kind of like a societal free mind expansion. This movie right into the cusp of the 90s where we got a lot more of that again. This really did feel like it makes sense that they made so much money because this really spoke to that generation. I think that they're like, oh yeah, like, like coming from like a more conforming version of like everything the 80s was like, you gotta be like everyone else. You want to be like fit in and like be cool and like all this and like the government and blah, blah, blah. And so this is like just at a perfect time where like people are like, I don't want to fucking do that. You know what I
I
mean?
don't know. I think it still speaks to people.
No, it still does, but that's why it made
Yeah.
over $200 million in 1989, which is Stone Age time. According to you guys.
35 years ago, honey.
Exactly.
That
That's what I'm saying.
definitely-
It's still
Older than us.
it still speaks to it's not older than Jordan.
It's the same age as Jordan.
Look, but he's a strapping young lad.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
ancient. But I think it just also goes to show like people were seeing movies in the 90s. Like
that is true. That is like
you
people went to the theater.
Fair.
yeah.
Anyway,
This doesn't feel like a grand slam for like home video. Like, like there's like E.T. That movie made a fuck ton of money in theaters and DVD rent, like, and VHS rentals, and like, you're a home video rental. So,
see, but this probably had a spike in like people taking an interest in like poetry and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. No, and
suicide.
I love the tender. It's like talking about like men's mental health.
Yeah.
Is awesome, and that it's like.
Well, I wish it's like, I know, because it infuriated me that they're just like, oh, it's his fault, and I'm like, what? Like, it infuriated me. There's like no accountability for fucking, the guy that killed RoboCop or whatever.
I know, dude.
I always forget his name.
That's rough.
I know.
I do love RoboCop's all I could think of.
That's all I think of too. He just like fucking blows off, Murphy's hand with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he's gonna get him.
That's so good.
Anyway, so I only got a couple Reddits. So I said I hadn't seen this movie in the post, and I'm only saying this to draw out, to make it seem like we have a lot of Reddit comments. So Competitive Bat 5831 says, how have you never seen this movie? It's such a classic. And then that made me be like, oh yeah, this is one of the movies on my pile of shame. We should do that sometime. Of like, to try and just, because I mean, the people that engage with us is like, what's the movies you feel like you should have seen by now because you're into movies and you haven't watched this, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then Clones of People 2 says, my second watch, saw it years ago but did not remember much. I'm not a huge fan of this film, and while I appreciate its merits, I feel like I don't connect with it. A bunch of teenagers rebelling through poetry just doesn't do it for me. The acting is superb, especially from Robin Williams. His physical body acting is incredible and should be studied. The actor playing Neil was great, reminded me of a less energetic Jim Carrey. I could see that. It also feels a bit dated, but I guess that's because it has been imitated and contains a lot of trope characters. Overall, it's a 6 out of 10 for me, saved by the acting and that it's easily watchable. Thank you. It is an easy watch.
Yeah, I didn't feel the runtime. Like,
it is. It felt, like we said, it's like, and it's weird that it's a comfort watch because it's like not that comfortable of a movie. Like there is like, I mean, I guess there's not like a ton of conflict until the end, but it's just like, I don't know, something about it warms your heart a little bit. You know what I mean? To see anything that's inspiring. Yeah, coming of age, inspiring stories.
We kept comparing it to the Virgin Teen Suicides. That was like the. Do you ever see that?
The Virgin Suicides?
Virgin Suicides?
Or the Virgin Suicides. I always say Virgin Teen for some reason, just because it, I don't know, adds an extra spice to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Virgin Suicides, which
it's been a bit since I've seen that.
That's definitely like what I was thinking of the whole time I was watching it.
Yeah. I just watched that movie again. I don't remember much of it. I just remember I hated the voiceover.
That's more focused. So that's what's nice too. It's like it's not a group, it's just the sisters, but
yeah. Anyway, do you have anything else to say about this movie? Any closing thoughts?
No, I think again this for me is about the story because that's what I pay attention to all the time, and that's why like it feels important to me. I guess what I would want to end this on is, what are you going to remember from this movie? What's like the one part that you feel like you'll never forget about this movie?
I'll remember, and like probably my second favorite scene is the first introduction when he takes the kids out into the hall and he like has them look at it, and it's like I love how like all the kids are like looking at each other and confused, and they're like, oh fuck, like this is not how we've ever been taught, and this is not how we've never been approached like this from an adult, let alone like given any kind of like agency or free will basically to get out of our desk and to come like to the hallway. And so like the second that happens, and then him just, it's like it's the perfect like just the comedy involved with the heavy thematic like statement of death, like looking at mortality and you're right in the face. And so I really enjoyed that. That's like, that'll be impactful. And then my favorite scene is when his parents give him the same desk set. When like little Ethan Hawke, and it's just like, that's great because I'm like, oh, Ethan Hawke's parents.
It's like, don't worry,
you'll probably get it again next year.
Yeah,
right. And it's like, and it's great too because that's perfect because like Neil and Todd, they're the exact same character, and they have the same parents. Just Todd's parents are micromanaging, and they're there, and they're more demanding. Where Todd's parents are like, aloof and they neglect him and they're just as like
In,
it's just as
in the
damaging.
holdovers,
But I love-
they just combined that into one character.
Right.
That is what they
I know,
did.
right? I know, right?
I feel like
Really,
the dude who wrote
God, you love the
holdovers.
holdovers. It's not going to win the Academy Award.
This made me
But,
love it more.
So, babe, for you, what are you? What are you gonna remember?
I mean, honestly, the ending, even though I said it wasn't as impactful, I think the imagery of it and obviously the framing of it is how it all comes up to that is such a defining moment for those boys. Because even though I said that like their characters are somewhat shallow, like characteristics, they all still feel very real. Because I mean, not everyone is super complex, right? And it's like so they
I
all
disagree. I think everyone is complex.
well, yeah,
Well,
I know,
right,
but I mean, like,
in your worldview, like everyone around you, you have different complexities.
yeah, some people are not that complex. Like these guys are complex, but like in a way that like you can't really dig into it because they are just written on a piece of paper, you know?
yes, fair
And it feels like that. But it's like they feel real. And it's like, so seeing that moment where it's like, you know, it brought a little twinkle tear to my eye almost. I was like, oh, that's nice. I wish I didn't know about it because it would have hit harder. But
Totally,
it hit hard enough that it made it all kind of come back around for me a little bit more. And it left because
I want children should see this. Like it will hit you hard.
Yeah.
Like, as a kid. And then
you know how important it is. I've said it many times. You know how important it is for a movie to stick the landing. And so it's just like, you know, whatever the pacing here and there about, and then like the suicide and stuff, it's like this landing was 100% fucking primo, killed it. And so it leaves you with that feeling. It ends with Ethan Hawke's face between the armpit of that kid or his legs or whatever, you know.
I know, right in his crotch, you can see his zipper.
Yeah.
I will say that this was probably the least one that I wanted chosen out of my 5 that I put up there.
Oh wow! Okay.
Whatever, you said Moonlight because I thought Moonlight was
It's
going
just
to
'cause
win.
I feel like I've seen it more recently.
Yeah, it is more
Moonlight.
recent though.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Moonlight and Dead Poet Society. I mean, I still wanted to watch them both, but I feel like I do want to encourage. It's too bad that the other ones didn't win. Coda, amazing.
Yeah, even though it won Best Picture, I feel like it's kind of underrated because
Florida Project.
nobody heard about it
and
until it won
Short Term
Best Picture.
12
Yeah.
are very important, I think, films, especially when it comes to like social work aspects.
I'm dying to watch Florida Project again. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think Moonlight is like
Moonlight's great.
hyper focused, and Moonlight is amazing.
Moonlight.
You know,
Moonlight's
it
one of those
deserves
movies.
its
The
Academy.
more I think about it, like I think back about Moonlight, and I'm like, oh man. But it's like, you know me, I like a good title card drop, and that movie's got some good ones.
Oh, dude, good title, and I love like three. I like when stories are told in 3 parts, and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
3 different aspects to show who they are at the end. And then when they're just, I love when a character just gets like hard, at the end of their 3rd act, you're like, oh, buddy,
Yeah,
it's so sick. But I want to see Coda because
you should.
it has like, it talks about disabilities, right? Like that's
Yeah, it's about
Deaf
deaf
child
people.
of-
community
child of
and,
deaf.
mhm.
yeah, which like I loved what is it, Sound of Metal? So
Sound of Metal rules. Ugh, I love that movie. Riz Ahmed's my guy.
Coda made Levi cry.
Did it? It might have.
never
It-
cried before
He cried.
to a movie.
Dude, movies make me cry all the time now. I'm a
No,
bitch.
Now, yeah, no, literally though.
I used to be
can't
fine,
believe,
and
like-
then I like turned 30
Yeah.
or something, and then I'm
You
just
had
like,
kids.
Right. No, dude. I mean, yeah, having the kid probably really helped. But I've noticed myself even being like at like stupid things that I'm like normally wouldn't have cared about. Now I like see it. And I'm like, oh, like I just feel the like oh, I don't know, it's working. The
I know
violins are working.
it hits me. Yeah. Anyway, so I was gonna make a poll. I'm moving on. That's go watch Dead Poet Society and make an opinion for yourself.
I know what we're watching next.
It's quite good. I gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd, which is pretty decent. So next week, I was gonna make a poll that was everything on the poll was Arrival, but I forgot. So I just put up the discussion page already.
I'm so sad because that would have been great.
I know, I forgot. Well, we don't even know what we're doing next week, so maybe we'll just fucking do something like that again.
No, I'll pick some. No,
But no, we are watching. No poll required. Mary's just picking it. Her favorite movie, at least as it stands. We'll see how she still feels next week. Is Denis Villeneuve's Arrival, which
is so sick, dude.
I'm excited to watch it again. I've seen it like quite a few times, but I'm like, it's been a couple years, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm excited to watch Arrival.
Yeah.
Probably gonna watch it tomorrow. Well, I don't know what the fuck else we're gonna do. I've never we'll talk about it.
Oh, for Valentine's Day?
Mary, I'm in utter suspense to find out why it's your favorite movie. And we'll
find
our
out
kind
next
folks
episode.
out there in podcast land will have to tune in next week.
Yeah.
Tune in. We're watching Arrival, so go check it out. It's worth it. All right.
Thanks.
That's it.
Bye.
Oh yeah. If you want to support us, go to Patreon.
Yeah, go to the Reddit.
/Oldest Stone of Knowledge. We'd love it. And you go to the Reddit and find us on I don't know, Instagram is kind of not really
I was like, are you
alive anymore, but come to Facebook.
Yeah,
Our
come to my
personal account.
Facebook.
Just come to YouTube, watch this video, and if you could just put here in the comments so we know you're actually watching, that would be awesome.
That would be sick. Yeah, if you actually comment on YouTube, I comment more on YouTube than
Yeah,
Reddit.
just be like, I'm not a bot.
Real
You can even
person.
say you're a bot, and I would just be happy because it's.
Yeah.
I don't think bots would comment.
I know, that would be scary. I'd be like, they're self-aware. No, no.
All of a sudden, there's just 108,000 comments.
Yeah.
We would take them. That generates ad revenue.
I'd take it. All right. Bye.
I like Dexter.
Good night.